All right, everybody, welcome to the Digital Dungeon Master Podcast, and we are going to talk Adventures League for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. And if you're asking yourself, what the heck is Adventures League? Well, it's a public play where you can go to stores, your local brick-and-mortar store, whether it be Sci-Fi City or whatever's in your town, and you play these organized games. And you play, usually a session is about 3 hours or so. And you bring your character and you play the same character all the time. And it's really easy to get started because all you have to do is go to the Wizards of the Coast website and get a DCI number to make it official. And I'm doing the air quotes there because you can't see them. And then you can take your character and go to the brick and mortar stores. You can then take that, put it into a character sheet, whether if you're playing on Fantasy Grounds, if you're playing on Roll20, or any of the other virtual tabletops out there. Or you can even take this character to conventions and stuff and play. As long as you have a valid log sheet and the DM will check it over and make sure everything's legit, you can play anywhere. So it's a really cool system. We're in the Tales from the Yawning Portal now, which I believe is Season 6. And the seasons are based on whatever current campaign is out or campaign setting. So now it's Tales from the Yawning Portal, and that will go until probably November or December when the Tomb of Annihilation comes out, and that will be Season 7. And then that's when it's going to change, and that's where I have my special guest, and I'm going to introduce him right now. I've been blabbering enough about Adventures League, so Mr. Robert Adducci, one of the big wigs of Adventures League, is actually on this little rinky-dink redneck peanut Dungeons and Dragons podcast. So, Robert, my friend, welcome, man.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So, Adventures League, you've been involved in this for a while. So, how did you get involved with Adventures League, and then how long have you been doing this?
Sure. So I got involved with Adventures League in, I think it was 2014, right before D&D 5th Edition came out. And I basically was, just online on Twitter one day, and I saw that Chris Tulak, who was the old Adventures League and organized play manager for D&D, put out a call on Twitter, and so I answered the call, and they asked for a resume and a gaming resume, and so I turned it in, and I had some I got a lot of recommendations from people that were in the industry. So like Tim Brown from Dark Sun, one of the creators of Dark Sun, gave me a recommendation. Alpha Stream, Teo Sabadia, he's on Twitter a lot, and he's worked a lot with organized play, and I've known him forever. He gave me a nice recommendation, and a few other people. And so I think, with my history, I'd already been doing some social media stuff for gaming companies. And so with that history, along with those recommendations, they called me back, and I got to be one of the 6 admins for the D&D Adventures League. And so we've been doing it for just over 3 years now.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's a long time, actually. And especially, I'm sure it's probably a lot of work, too. So...
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like a part-time job, and of course, we all spend more time on it than they probably pay us for, just because. Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, because we're all passionate fans, and so we're all willing to spend the extra time to make things cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So the Stream of Annihilation, that was about a month ago or so, and then I had Chris Lindsay from Wizards of the Coast. Chris, we all play in the Fantasy Grounds Sunday game. Yeah,
Chris is basically our boss at Wizards.
That's all. Yeah, he said he's got a bunch of jobs going on over there, man.
Yeah,
he seems like he's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, he does.
So when I had him on, we had briefly touched on Adventures League, and I actually voiced some concerns that I had from a DM, and also concerns that my players had, and he said, "Oh, well, during the Stream of Annihilation that we're going to have here," and it was about a month into the future, he said, "we're going to announce a lot of Adventures League changes." So that's why we got you here, because we want to talk about all of these Adventures League changes, because, I run Adventures League every Friday. I really like Adventures League. The stories are great. My players really like it, but my players have some concerns. We won't get into those, but what kind of changes are going to be coming? Because Chris was saying that the new format for Adventures League is going to leave its current path that it's been on since Tyranny of Dragons back in 2014, where it's going to be adventures, but now with the new season coming out in November, December with Tomb of Annihilation, that these are going to be plug-and-play mini-adventures that you're going to be able to run coinciding with the actual campaign setting of whatever's coming out. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So when we started Adventures League, they kind of gave us the Moonsea area, and they said, write your kind of campaigns with the theme of the main storyline, but in this other place. And so we did that for seasons 1 through 4, really, all the way up through Barovia, through the Ravenloft season. And then season 5, they wanted us to move away from the Moonsea, but still kind of do the same sort of thing. So with season 5, with the Storm King's Thunder, we moved and we had 3 separate locations, one for kind of each tier of play, that were closer to the Sword Coast, closer to the main action, but still not really involved. Again, just the same sort of, using the same theme. So we used giants as the theme. And so it was still the same, the ordning was broken. And so all these other things were happening. And they were sort of side adventures, but they were sort of separate. What we're doing now and going forward is that we're going to be much more closely tied to the hardcover. And so that means we're, this Tomb of Annihilation, which actually comes out in September. So September 19th, it should come out, I believe. And then maybe 10 days earlier for Wizards Play Network stores, as well as Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. But those adventures this adventure, Tomb of Annihilation, is in Chult. And we, as the Adventures League, will also be in Chult. And so all of our adventures, we're going to have, all the tiers, tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. So levels 1 to 20 adventures. And they're going to be much more closely tied to the hardcover. If there's like a little mention of something, but it's not delved deeper into in the hardcover, we might take that little piece and make a whole adventure out of it. And so the locations and some of the NPCs will be similar. But we're also, even though we're tied heavily into the book, in that you can, jump from the book to our adventures pretty seamlessly, each kind of tier is going to have its own sort of little mini storyline, as well as a running storyline through all of them. So yes, you can use it with the book, and you can also play them separately if you want. So you don't have to have the book, but if you do, you're going to get maybe a little bit extra out of it.
Nice. So the book will have the little side note boxes and say, hey, check out this Adventures League module to input this adventure here for your players, something like an optional thing or something.
Not quite there. We did talk about that. We have talked about that with Wizards, and I think that might be something that happens in the future, perhaps. But I don't think this book is going to have those kind of directions. But I think that might be something that we do in the future, just to tie them even closer, like you said.
Because you, as a DM, you got a lot going on. I have a lot going on, so we're pressed for time. And when a DM can have any kind of, push in a general direction like that, that's nice, man. So yeah, something like that would definitely be good for the future. So there's a lot of change there. Well, he said that Chris said there's going to be a lot of changes. So one concern that I expressed was magic items. They're just, and I understand the whole point of you want to make sure that these characters are legit. They need to have certificates, yada, 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 all this stuff. But are there going to be more magic items in Adventures League starting pretty soon? And is there going to be other things that you can spend your gold on besides just healing potions and toolkits? Because that is coming from my players, and I have 15 different Adventures League players. And that's the main concern that they have. They're tired of sitting on all of this gold and not being able to do anything with it. So is there any kind of changes coming up in the future with stuff like that?
So with magic items, there is going to be a change in kind of the way they are, the way they're given out and the way they're kind of tracked. You're talking about certificates, like we stopped needing certificates last season, or the season before maybe, just to make trading easier for people, because not everybody had access to the stores where you could get the certs and all that stuff. And now even with season 5 and with season 6 and then ongoing, we also include the certificates with the PDF adventures when you buy them. So certificates are just a thing that people can have because they're, people like having printouts and stuff like that. So that will sort of continue in that way. But there will be other ways to get magic items, but we're not, we haven't really revealed that yet. So I can't really say more than that because truthfully, we haven't created the entire system yet. So I don't want to say something and have to go back on it. But we will be doing something. I'm not 100% sure it will be with this season. It might be with the next season. And as far as spending money, that's something that, I try to, like when I write adventures, I try to put little things in there for ways for people to spend money, spend their downtime, get cool little effects. And so that will continue. There are, in Xanathar's Guide to Everything that's coming out in November, there will be additional ways to spend downtime. And some of that will probably include spending money. So one of the things is once we get, as the admins, once we get that book, then we can look at that and we can go, okay, this is what Mike Merles and this is what the D&D team is doing. So this is how we're going to, we can add to Adventures League using sort of this this format. So like if they created some downtime rules, maybe we can use those downtime rules. Like say they create downtime to to have a business or to own a keep or something like that, then we can sort of use that and implement those. So we're sort of waiting for that right now to see what that ends up looking like, and then we can determine how we want to implement them.
That's cool. Yeah, because as long as it's official Adventures League, because there's a lot of sticklers out there that, if it's not in the player's packet, then this can't happen. So
right.
I usually allow in my game, I allow my players to do anything they want. So, but then again, my players, we do not take our characters and go to conventions or any other games. We keep all of those characters here. And that's the great thing about Adventures League is you can just play all of the adventures as a campaign. Or if you want to go the total 100% legit official route, you can do that with all of the logs and stuff. So basically, you can incorporate more items. And, I'm not saying you can't do that, but you just can't take the characters anywhere and play in another con or anything. So, but I see what you're saying. As long as it's official, that's good. And especially with the new Xanathars coming out, especially if that stuff's going to be official for Adventures League, I'm all for it, because there needs to be more things that you can do except for just accumulate gold.
Sure.
And, that's coming from a DM because I get feedback from my players. Yeah. And, it's good that the DMs can give feedback. And that's another great thing about the whole entire D&D Next and D&D 5th edition that we have is Wizards and you guys are actually really listening to the community. Because there's all kinds of, all of these different questionnaires and stuff that are going out all the time. And it actually really seems that Wizards is really listening to the community. And I like that. Definitely. So as for the stuff in Xanathars, are we going to be able to use that for Adventures League? Like the official, like if you're at a convention, can I say, hey, I had 4 days of downtime. I wanted to do 4 days of carousing. I want to take a roll on that carousing table. Are we going to be able to do stuff like that?
We haven't seen the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, so I can't say yes, you're going to be able to use everything. I don't imagine a problem. We've so far, the Sword Coast Adventures Guide and Volo's Guide to Monsters, we've allowed all that stuff in the Adventures League. So I don't see a reason why. There's some small guides that we use, like no flying at first level, so you can't be a tiefling with wings or the Aarakocra or whatever. So there's some things that we will limit just to make our lives easier for the DM and for other players. If certain things are not, if they don't mesh well with organized play, we might do some changes. But other than that, everything should be included for the most part. Yeah,
it's pretty solid. I can understand the Aarakocra no death domain paladin, and no death domain cleric and oathbreaker paladin, because they want to keep that theme of good versus evil, and I know that in the players portion of the every season it says no player versus player either. They want to keep that out too, which that could actually be pretty interesting at a con with 6 people that have no idea of who the person is beside him.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden the rogue backstabs him and crits and kills the character. Oh man, that would just be a barroom brawl. So that would actually be pretty fun. You guys might want to incorporate that down the line.
Yeah. We'll think about that.
But crafting, Downtime Days. I'm sorry. I love 5e. I run a ton of 5e. I've been playing 5e for years now. 2 years before it even came out. Crafting is the weakest part of 5th edition. In my opinion, the only weak part of 5th edition is the crafting. This 5 gold a day crap and 5 gold for an assistance is just absolutely horrible. If you want to craft something, it's going to take you a multitude of days, especially to craft like plate mill or something, and it's never going to happen. So is there any kind of modifications with Downtime Days coming up? Is there going to be anything implemented, or
I don't think so. I mean,
sorry to interrupt you. Go for it.
Yeah, I don't think so. Just because using the gold and the Downtime Days, like, you can craft stuff. You just have to have the gold and the downtime. I mean, I haven't seen it be really an issue, except for where people are trying to use like the fabricate spell and stuff like that. Then it becomes a bit of an issue. But we haven't heard that being a problem. So, I will definitely note that you think that it's an issue, and if it comes up more from other people's feedback, we'll kind of look into it.
I don't think it's. I'll kind of go back on that. I don't think it's an issue for Adventures League, because of most of the time people just want to get in and out of a game, and I don't think they really want the micromanaging of that. I'm just talking a base as a whole. The crafting in 5e, just the mechanics are bad. But that's when it's up to the DM,
right,
to kind of incorporate something else. Like maybe if you're wanting to make that chest plate, that breastplate, maybe go out and slay a wormling dragon or something like that, and then you can take one of the scales and make your breastplate that way, or your plate armor or something. So it's totally up to the DM to kind of elaborate on it, expand on it, and immerse the player a little bit more. But I just don't like the crafting in 5e. I think it could have been done a little bit better, but that's the whole theme of 5e. They wanted to keep everything plain and simple, and I think I think they got what they wanted on that. But
yeah, and I think if you like the whole getting ingredients from monsters and that sort of thing, I know there's some cool items on the DM's Guild where people have sort of broken out what ingredients you can get from monsters, like to make, like you're saying, plate armor and whatever. That kind of stuff is really cool if you want to delve into that.
Yeah, I do that with I have an Out of the Abyss game that we're playing, and I have a ranger, and he loves to anything that poisons, carrion crawlers, anything like that. He is like extracting with nature checks, and then he creates his poisons. I allow him to make one poison. I let him do a D4. If he gets a 1 or 2, he can make 1 poison. If he gets a 3 or 4, he had a really good rest and he can make two doses. So I allow him to extract. But like I said, it's up to the DM to, I hate to say no to players. I don't like to say no, but I do on occasions. But elaborate. Have fun with your players. Let them have fun, because if you can't keep your players engaged, you're not doing your job, you know what I mean, as a dungeon master. So
for sure.
But Downtime Days, what about changes for Downtime Days? Is there anything coming with Downtime Days?
Same thing. In Xanathars there will be new stuff? Merles has said there's going to be some stuff in Xanathars. So again, we haven't seen a final copy, so we can't comment on what's going to be in there, or if we're going to allow it or whatever, which I mean, I don't see why not, but we'll just have to wait to see what's in there. So come November, we'll probably have some new stuff.
So does that goes probably for Renown too, because of the factions. I love the faction incorporation, or the Gauntlet, the Zentarum, all of these Emerald Enclave, and there's really nothing to do with these Renown points. I mean, what can we do? Is it going to be expanded, or is that going to be in Xanathars as well?
Well, that is something that we do have more control over. And last season we put out a guide to the factions, and we allowed a way for people to spend gold and spend renown, not spend renown, but and downtime to have a few extra like little things. Like you could each faction has a set of magic items that they could basically purchase. And so you have to be a certain rank in the faction, and then you have access to that. There's some downtime activities that you can do, like you can get mentors and you can get apprentices, and you can learn different skills at a reduced rate because of your faction and stuff like that. So definitely check out the guide to the factions of Faerun. It's on the DM's Guild. It's free, and that has some stuff for you guys to do. And we'll continue to change that each season as people want different things and more options.
So that's what I was going to ask, because I think that came out for Storm King Sunder, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. Now, can we go back and use that for Season 1 Tyranny of Dragons or the Elemental Evil for Season 2?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so everything, even though we have the seasons, and obviously we're going through them because, as time passes, we're going through new seasons, you can always go back and play the older stuff and use anything that we have currently out with the older stuff. So that's never a problem.
I really like the Tyranny of Dragons. I really like that around Flan. That's really good. Maltmaster's good too. Elemental Evil. Mm-hmm. We played that for a little bit. That was fun. So that was all the questions that I had. Now, do you have any of these top secret bits of information that you can that you can tell everybody, that any kind of new changes that we haven't talked about, or any kind of additional information that what we have in store for the future of Adventures League? Inquiring minds want to know this stuff, Robert.
Sure. So, we really appreciate the work that all of the DMs do that run all of the Adventures League games all across the world. And in order to show that we appreciate that, we, the Adventures League admins, have put together what we're calling Super Secret Project 76. And if you follow Greg Marks, who's one of the admins on Twitter, he's Skerrit the Green, which I actually think is SKERRIT 7H3 Green. Skerrit the Green. If you follow him, or if you just follow the D&D Adventures League Twitter, we retweet him when he talks about it. But he's been putting out pictures and little sneak peeks about what this is. And I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but I'm going to say it's something that that we're going to do to thank the DMs that run for us. And in the coming weeks, say near Gen Con, we'll have some more information about that. Aside from that,
Project 76, huh?
Yeah, Super Secret Project 76. That's right. Right. So that'll be pretty cool. We've been working on that. Let's see. Aside from those things that we've already talked about, those are really kind of the big changes that we've got coming up. As I said, there's going to be changes in the way sort of magic items are handled a little bit, but we really haven't nailed down that, so I don't really want to give any more about that yet. And the closeness working with the hardcover is really the big thing. And I think I've heard some concerns. People are saying like, oh, it's you have to have the hardcover to play. That's not true. If you don't have the hardcover, you can still play our adventures. It will just I think it's more going to be like Easter eggs rather than hard ties. So if you played the hardcover, you'll be like, cool, I've met this NPC before or whatever, or I heard about this location or whatever. So those
players like those aha moments too. Oh, I remember that guy, or I remember that NPC.
Right.
Oh, so that's what that item's for. Okay, that item that we found in the adventure will work here in Adventures League or something like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Little Easter eggs are good.
Yeah, and actually one other thing that I can say that we haven't really said at all, because we recently announced the first 8 adventures that are going to come out for the Adventures League for Season 7. But going off of something that Chris had said when he was on your show, he said that this season is going to be a long season, and it's going to go until May of next year. So that's, previously the seasons kind of at the beginning of the year started in February or March. So this one is going to be a couple of months longer. And in doing so, if it's going to be longer, we got to have more adventures. So there's going to be 18 adventures for this season, as well as 2 epics.
Oh, wow.
And I think I calculated it, and it's going to be 70 hours of adventures for Adventures League.
That's just bare minimum. Rush through it at 70 hours. I mean, chances are it's going to be a lot more than 70 hours, because a lot of those times that are predicted in the packets themselves, I'm like, there's no way this is going to be 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and then it usually ends up taking a couple of hours. So, but I think they do that for the cons, just to rush it through.
You have the benefit of not being constricted by your time. Like I was just running Travis Whittle's DDAL 6-1 1,000 Tiny Deaths, which is kind of like the predecessor to Forge of Fury, and that's a 2-hour adventure. And we went, I'm running that online for some of my Patreon folks, and we went through that. We've gone through 3 hours so far, and we're like halfway through it. So when you put a lot of role playing, it's going to definitely take some extra time. And it's but if you're running them at cons, you can kind of squeeze them in there. But so what I was saying with all those adventures, the next set of adventures we're going to announce sometime soon are for all the rest of the tiers. So far we've announced tier 1 and tier 2 adventures. We're going to have tier 3 and tier 4 adventures, and they are going to they're going to pick up where the Tomb of Annihilation leaves off, because I think the Tomb of Annihilation ends at maybe a level 11 or something like that. I can't remember what they said specifically. So we're going to pick up where that left off. We're going to have, the higher level adventures, up to, tier 4 adventures. And so we're going to take the themes, the themes of the really powerful monsters, the Yuan-Tai, the liches, all that kind of stuff, and really challenge characters.
That's good. Yeah, because there needs to be more high level content, whether it be challenge rating creatures, because there's not a whole lot of them past challenge level, really 8 or 9 in the Monster Manual, and in Volos. So yeah, taking Adventures League past the story up to level 20, because I mean, let's face it, D&D 5e, you can go to level 20, but why have a level 20 if you have no content out there to consume?
Right.
But but there again, most players usually play low level games and they don't last long, so that's the reason for that. But for the hardcore people, especially for the people that want to start at a higher level, it is nice to see more content out there for the higher levels.
Yeah, that's definitely one of our goals, is to provide that higher level content, because at the moment, Wizards has said that it's, the players don't want that for those hardcover books. Some of the DMs want it, and people want to just read it, of course, but in order to really get, what they want out of putting together a hardcover book, it's just not there. And so that's where we, as the Adventures League, are coming into play. So a lot of our content for season 7, the first half, like I said, is low level stuff, and it is short low level adventures is the majority of what we're doing for the first half. The second half, however, are one thing I can tell you is that they are going to be all, I believe, 4-hour adventures. So it's really hard to make a short adventure for high level. I tried it last season. I wrote DDAL 6-3, the Crypt of the Death Giants, and it was super hard to write that as a 2-hour adventure. So that just came out the beginning of this month. So I'm really interested to see people's experiences with that. And like you were talking about, it's the adventures or the monsters for high level, there's just not a whole lot out there. And so as Adventures League, we're required to use the monsters that we have. We can't really create new monsters whole cloth. Now we can modify them. And so I did that. And so in Crypt of the Death Giants, spoilers, there are death giants. And there are
my ears.
Yeah, imagine that. And so there's no death giants in 5th edition. Those were 4th edition creatures. And so in order to make them, I actually took an already existing monster and tweaked it a little bit. I made them huge because death giants are huge. I just tweaked some of their stats to make them giants, just slightly. So they're still the same high CR of whatever creature they were before, but now they have this flavor. So I think people will enjoy that, hopefully, and that's the kind of thing you're going to see in the high level stuff.
That's nice. Too bad we didn't have that arsenal of 6,700 monsters from 4th edition, huh?
Yeah.
Man, there's so many monsters in there. And that was the great thing about it, about 4th edition was, you could play kobolds and have kobolds from level 1 to 30, and there'd be a whole mess of them. So, it's not like in the monster manual for 5th edition, there's just the kobold and the winged kobold. But then, then Volos and stuff expands on stuff. So the new Adventures League that's coming out is there, going along with the new format. This is, a dungeon master concern. I've given you some players' concerns, but how about the appearance of Adventures League? Is there going to be art added to it? Is there going to be a different type of cartography that are involved in these? Because I hate to mention it, but Pathfinder Society. You take a look at Pathfinder Society, and they charge for that stuff, and it's pretty much the same price as Adventures League. But it's two different formats. They incorporate all kinds of art and full-blown cartography for their Pathfinder Society stuff. Is that going to be happening in the future for Adventures League as well?
So I think you have to look at the programs and kind of what they're for. I don't work for Pathfinder, so I can't say for certain, but I think that the Pathfinder Society is sort of like a marketing arm of Pathfinder, and so they really want those things to kind of shine in that way. And we used to be like that, and so like back in the day of they would put all that extra effort into it, and that's what they were spending money to make those happen, and basically losing money on each of those kind of products. And I think that's sort of changed as D&D is kind of the D&D team kind of leaned down and is kind of making everything work for them as much as possible. And so so we are with the DMs Guild, like that's how the authors are paid now. So each D&D Adventures League adventure written by an author and goes onto the DMs Guild, and that's how they're paid. So if an author wants to put like a color photo and wants to put custom maps that they have made, if they want to put that on there, that's kind of up to the author now, since they're reaping the rewards of that sort of stuff.
So they have to put all the money up front to make a beautiful, elaborate PDF then, right?
Yeah, I mean, if that's what they want to do, so we're still having, we can still have the maps done by Travis. He's still putting out the high resolution maps, and he's starting to do color now and a bunch of stuff too. So I think those maps, the usual maps that we get, will continue to kind of get better and to be more useful. And if people want to put in art, they can do that. It's just that it's such a slim margin on the DMs Guild, even though doing so, they're still making more money. The designers are still making more money than they used to when they were just paid straight up by Wizards. So if they want to sink money into that to make more money, they're welcome to do that.
I don't know if I'll be honest, I don't know if I really like that. I understand that about the DMs Guild, but you take a look at 4th edition and when they had encounters and layer assault and all that stuff. I mean, that stuff was amazing. You'd get books and you'd get tiles, you'd get tokens and stuff. And then, it seems like as 5th editions come on, because we'll face it, they were anti-digital with Adventures League at first. Because I remember I contacted you years ago. That's how I actually, met you. And, it was like, it didn't seem like Wizards was interested at all in doing Adventures League in digital. And then all of a sudden they're doing it. But, it seems like they're not doing the physical stuff for the stores anymore. So I can see that they invested a lot for that layer assault stuff. But, like you said, it costs money to make money. And, when you get people playing Adventures League and testing it out, they're getting a look at that stuff and they're going, oh, okay, that's cool. But then they'll see Pathfinder and say, wow, that stuff looks really, really crazy. It looks great. It's just like, I think Wizards could put a little bit more effort into making it look better for you guys as the authors. I think that they could do a little bit more on their end, because you guys are putting out great content. I mean, I'm really a huge fan of Adventures League, but I think that they could do a little bit more for you guys for cartography and, PDF editing and stuff like that. But that's just my, coming from a dungeon master standpoint.
Sure. And I think, looking at once you see Super Secret Project 76, you'll see a little bit more of that.
I love that
name. And so we'll see how people feel about that and how it's received, and that could change things going forward for sure.
Cool. So I think we've talked about everything about Adventures League. Now, I always ask my guests, Robert, every one of my guests, how the heck did you get into this beautiful hobby that we have in tabletop games? How did you get into it?
So in I think it was 1989, 1990, I think it was in 8th grade, and I think we were just hanging out with a friend and his cousin, and it was in Arizona in the summer, and it was blazing hot, so we weren't going outside. And so my friend's cousin was like, "You guys want to play a game?" And we said, "Sure." And so he just basically started running D&D just like off the top of his head, right? So we didn't have any books or anything like that. And so we played, and it was amazing. I was like, "This is fantastic." And so I hadn't even heard about Dungeons & Dragons yet. I just knew this thing that this guy created. And so I'd played some computer games like Bard's Tale and all the Ultima games and all that kind of those old school games. And so I kind of understood the genre already. And so I was like, well, if you can do this, just talking about it, I was like, I'm going to create that. And so I basically like took some 3x5 cards and like wrote some monsters on it, and like had a very simple like card mechanic, like you win or you lose kind of thing. And then I had I made cards for like items, like you have a lantern and it lets you shine light 30 feet or whatever. And so I made up all these things. And then somehow shortly after that, I learned about D&D. And so then it was on. I kept asking my mom, every time I went to the comic store, be like, "Can I get that? Can I get that?" And it was like the red box, and she kept telling me no. It was like during the 80s and the Satanic Panic and all that stuff, and so she kept telling me no, and so but I kept on it, and finally she relented and said, "Okay." So she bought me the red box, and pretty much like every day for like a long time, she just kept saying, "Remember, it's only a game. It's only a game." and
so
then,
you got that sit down with your parents too, huh?
Yeah.
The Dan rather sit down. Oh,
yeah. And so finally, at one point, I got annoyed with her. Just kept saying that. So I said, "All right, just sit down here and watch us play." And so she sat down one time, watched us play some basic D&D, and I never heard anything from her again about it.
That was the same thing for us, and then my mom would actually kind of cook stuff for us, but it was fun, man. I got into it around 4th grade in about 84, and once I got a taste of it, that was it, man. I was like you. I was bugging the shit out of my mom every single day to take me to Walden Books and get me another book. So man, those were the good old days.
Yeah.
So I know you both play. I know you play, and you also dungeon master. So why don't you tell us a little story of something memorable as a DM or player, or maybe something that was super funny?
Sure. So,
so
I'm a huge Dark Sun fan. Yeah, no, I got it. So I'm a huge Dark Sun fan, and so like in high school, I ran a ton of Dark Sun, and but I'm still high school, still young, and still not that experienced. But we were playing, and my friend Tim, who was playing in Dark Sun, he was playing a mule, which is half dwarf, half human, and they're like super strong and stuff. And so he was super strong, and so he had like a 22 strength or 24 strength, something ridiculous. And he says, he's fighting, and they're trying to capture this guy. And he says, I want to, just do a called shot to his leg to kind of like just hurt him, but not kill him. So he does a called shot, and he like crits on it.
Oh, God.
And then he like rolls some ridiculous damage. And so, I was a relatively new DM, didn't really know what to do. So he did like 40 or 50 damage more than the guy's hit points. And so I just was like in a panic. I was like, you punch his leg off. Which is completely ridiculous, and it just makes me laugh every time. I envision this mule punching this guy's leg completely off, and like he was so strong, it almost doesn't seem that ridiculous, but it's just really funny. So I always
punches his leg off at the hip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you heard that story I said the other night when you were on the show last week. That actually happened to me, man. That was crazy. Oh man.
Yeah.
So, Robert, I'm not going to keep you around, man. I appreciate you coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Anytime you want to come on and talk about Adventures League, man, let's do it. So, because
Cool.
I really enjoy Adventures League, I love it, and I'll continue to run it. So, I appreciate it, man. And
thank you.
why don't you
Thanks
give us some sites and stuff where people can get a hold of you, whether it's your Patreon or on Twitter, so they can send you all their AL questions and bug the crap out of you.
Definitely. So if you want to do that, if you want to send me some AL questions, you can send them to the Twitter. We're at DND_ADV League. So D&D Adventures League on Twitter. You can send them to me via email at community@dndadventuresleague.org. Check out the adventuresleague.org website. We have Facebook groups, G+ communities. All, just search over Adventures League, you'll definitely find them. We also have DMs groups on those as well. So if if you're a DM and you have some specific questions about DMing Adventures League content, you can ask there. Then you can find me personally on Twitter at Raddu76. It's RADDU76. You can find me on Facebook and Google Plus as well. And then if you want to see me in person, you can stalk me at I'll be at GatewayCon in September. That'll be September 1st through 4th in Los Angeles. The following week, so what is that, September 11th, I guess, 7th through 11th or something like that, I'll be at Queen City Conquest in Buffalo, New York. Then in October 20th through 22nd, I'll be at QuestCon in Mobile, Alabama. November 3rd through 5th, I will be at CarnageCon in Killington, Vermont. And if you can't make it to any of those places, but you still want to game with me, you can find me at patreon.com/Robert Adducci. And I run my author-only adventures. So we have some adventures that only the authors can run, and that's just the 6 admins, and as well as any of the D&D team. They can write their adventures to be Adventures League legal. And so we play on Fantasy Grounds there, and I'm also running a Yawning Portal game there, as well as a 5th edition custom Dark Sun game. That's obviously not Adventures League legal, but we still have a good time.
That's awesome. Got a lot going on, man.
Yeah, busy.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks again, Robert. I appreciate you having it on. There you go, everybody. That is the Adventures League podcast. I appreciate my very special guest, Robert Adducci, for taking the time to stop by and talk with us for a little bit. Don't forget to download these podcasts on the Podbean website. You can also go and check them out on iTunes, or if you want to watch this video, check out my YouTube channel. All of the links are down below. And my next Digital Dungeon Master podcast, the theme will be, if you're new to Dungeons & Dragons, what you need to do to create a character. And we're going to talk about all of the different classes. We're going to talk about races. We're going to talk about combinations. We're going to talk about brainstorming. So if you have any questions, if you're new to Dungeons & Dragons, or if you're a savvy veteran like myself, if you have any questions, tweet them to me at the Digital Dungeon Master. You can ask me questions on Facebook, send me a question on my website. You can get a hold of me so many different ways, and they're all down in the comments section below. And then I'll go ahead and answer all of your questions in next podcast. So thank you guys again. I appreciate it. Keep it savage and keep rolling those 20s.